Thousands of years before the events depicted in the A Song of Ice and Fire book series, Westeros was a land populated by fearsome giants and diminutive Stone Age children of the forest who wielded magic and had a deep connection to the natural world. These non-human races roamed the continent for many years until the first men entered Westeros through the Arm of Dorne, a southern land bridge leading to the eastern continent of Essos, located across a narrow stretch of sea. Although exact dates for such events cannot be known, Westerosi scholars of later ages estimated that the first migration of humans into the continent began around 12,000 years before conquest. BC, before the conquest, and AC, after the conquest, are the year notations used by these scholars, who base it on the conquest of Aegon Targaryen, the warrior king who founded a powerful dynasty which united the continent under their rule. Returning to the Dawn Age as it was known, a popular story in the South claimed it was the great hero Garth Greenhand who originally led the first men into Westeros, settling a realm in the Reach, where he became the ancestor of many noble houses, including House Gardner, while northern stories say it was the first king, possibly buried in the Great Barrow of Barrowton, who first led their people west. Whatever the case, the first men introduced a new level of technology to the continent, wielding weapons and armor of bronze, riding horses, and using a runic writing system. As a result, they spread all the way into the north, slaughtering any children of the forest or giants who stood in their way. Going to war, legends say the children of the forest performed a magical ritual to shatter the Arm of Dorne land bridge, thereby cutting off further migration west, but by that point it was too late, as the first men already on the continent could not be defeated. Ending the war around 10,000 BC, the first men and children formed a peace pact, where humans were given open lands, while the natives took the deep woods. This peace also caused the first men to adopt the old gods of the children, deities associated with special weirwood trees, some of which served as heart trees with carved faces. Although peace meant the slaughter of children ended for a time, their population was greatly diminished, as was that of the giants who migrated into the far north to escape extinction, lessening in number until they were rarely seen. The first men, meanwhile, thrived after the war, establishing mighty kingdoms throughout the continent during a period called the Age of Heroes. It was during these years that many legendary figures from Westerosi history rose to prominence, like Lan the Clever, founder of House Lannister, a cunning trickster who swindled House Casterly into giving up their ancestral home of Casterly Rock. Durin Godsgrief, founder of House Durrandon, who built the mighty fortress Storm's End to endure terrible storm attacks from the sea god and goddess of the wind in retaliation for marrying their daughter Elenai. Then there was the Grey King, who slew a sea dragon and ruled the Iron Islands, from which many of the Ironborn noble houses descended, including House Greyjoy of Pike. Yet tragedy eventually struck in 8000 BC, when Westeros suffered a generation of darkness and invasion by the Others, or White Walkers, from the lands of always winter in the furthest reaches of the far north. Although the people of Westeros were accustomed to long dark winters, as seasons in this world could last several years, the long night stood out for its unusual length, resulting in widespread famine and death. These conditions then worsened when the White Walkers invaded, strange, beautiful, elegant beings of ice, wielding powerful magic, allowing them to raise armies from fallen humans and animals, turning them into whites, unrelenting undead slave soldiers, serving their masters without question. Although much damage was inflicted, legends claim it was the last hero who saved humanity by embarking upon a quest north in search of the elusive children of the forest. The last hero underwent this journey with a dragon steel sword, a horse, a dog, and a dozen companions, but lost them all along the way. Yet in the end, he found the children and convinced them to ally with the first men against the White Walkers. Learning whites could be killed with fire, while the others fell to obsidian and dragon steel, the first men rallied behind an organization called the Night's Watch, and won a decisive victory in the Battle for the Dawn, pushing the others back into the lands of always winter. In order to prevent any such invasion in the future, the hero Bran the Builder, founder of House Stark, raised a massive wall in the north, aided by the Children of the Forest, who cast powerful spells upon the ice. The Night's Watch was then charged with protecting the south from all threats beyond the wall, including attacks from the first men who lived beyond the wall after its construction. These people developed their own clan-based culture over time, calling themselves Freefolk, while Southerners called them Wildlings, believing them savages and raiders. Emerging from a harrowing time in which the first men struggled for survival, it was important to note that Westeros was not the only land facing crisis during the Long Night. Taking a step back for a wider view of the known world, many people in foreign lands told similar stories to those found in the Western continent. Across the Narrow Sea in Essos, stories of the Rhoynar people claimed that terrible darkness froze the river Rhoyne until a hero emerged who united the children of the goddess mother to sing a secret song which brought back the day. Traveling further east, the Great Empire of the Dawn, said to rule nearly all lands beyond the Bone Mountains, had their own legends, with the most prominent version stating the wicked deeds of the Bloodstone Emperor caused the Maiden Maid of Light to turn her back on the world. This led to an age of darkness, when the Lion of Night came forth to punish the realms of men. As a result, demon armies invaded from the northeast, causing the Pearl Emperor to build 5 massive blackstone fortresses for their defense. The devastation of these years only ended when a hero wielding the sword Lightbringer led the armies of men to victory against the forces of night, restoring light to the world. Though humanity was saved, the Great Empire of the Dawn did not survive, and so many of the realms that formed in the ensuing years adopted their own versions of the hero, naming him Hirkun the Hero, Neferion, Yintar, and Eldric Shadow Chaser, while the followers of the Red God R'hllor in the ancient city of Ashai called him Azor Ahai. The legend of Azor Ahai then went into further detail, claiming that to forge Lightbringer, the Red Sword of Heroes, their savior labored for 100 days and nights before driving the blade through his wife Nisa's heart, so her blood, soul, strength, and courage went into the steel. Using this sword to save humanity, prophecies foretold Azor Ahai would one day return, reborn to fight against a second darkness. Following the years of the Long Night, many of the ancient realms were lost, allowing new powers to emerge throughout the world, while others survived and rebuilt as best they could. South of Westeros, in the Summer Isles, an ebony-skinned people developed an enlightened culture that emphasized love and trade over hatred and warfare, while further east was Sothorios, a mysterious, resource-rich continent that many civilizations failed to colonize because of dangerous wildlife, deadly diseases, and large, hostile natives known as the Brindled Men, one of the many non-human races who shared this world, like the short, stocky Ebonese on the island of Ib, the nature-loving Woodwalkers of Ifukavron, and the strange, violent, green-skinned people of the Thousand Islands. In the far east of Essos, the Golden Empire of Yi Ti was the largest and most prosperous of the successor states to the Great Empire of the Dawn, benefiting from the Jade Sea trade route, which brought ships from east and west to trade rare items for high prices. Other states and peoples of the region included the Patrimony of Hirkun, the nomadic Jogos Nai, and a number of Far Eastern realms, so distant the scholars of Westeros know them only as lands of magic, monsters, and barbarous people, demonstrated in the mysterious city of Ashai, where the water glowed green at night, no children or animals could be found, and every manner of wickedness was permitted. Moving west beyond the Bone Mountains, Essos was populated with many realms until the rise of the Valyrian Freehold. Starting as simple sheep herders, the pale-skinned, silver-gold-haired, purple-eyed Valyrians found dragons living around the 14 Flames volcano chain on the Valyrian Peninsula, and over time became dragon riders capable of great magic. Among the many cultural traits they developed, the most notable was their tradition of marrying within their own families to keep the blood of the dragon strong. Expanding into a mighty empire, their enormous, flying, fire-breathing dragons proved an overwhelming advantage, forcing conquered survivors to flee or submit to Valyria. As they expanded westward, the Andal people of northern Essos first migrated to Andalos along the coast, before sailing aboard ships to settle Westeros. Dated to between 6000 and 2000 BC, the Andals became the second major human cultural group to invade the continent, going to war with the First Men and nearly wiping out the remaining children of the forest. In addition to wielding weapons and armor of iron, having an elite class of warrior knights, and developing a superior writing system, the Andals were devout worshippers of the Seven, a single god with 7 aspects, represented by the Father, Mother, Smith, Warrior, Maiden, Crone, and Stranger. Conquering all of Westeros south of the Neck, it was only the First Men of the North under House Stark that successfully defended their realm. Although the Andals spread the faith of the Seven to nearly every territory they controlled, they also married the defeated and adopted many of their traditions, most noticeably on the Iron Islands, where they converted to the faith of the Drowned God held by the local population. Around 700 years before conquest, the last major migration into Westeros occurred when Princess Nymeria led what remained of a 10,000-ship Rhoynar refugee fleet, escaping the Dragonlords of Valyria. After failing to settle other lands, Nymeria arrived in Dorne and married the Andal leader of House Martell, creating an alliance that conquered the territory, making Westeros a land of Andals, Rhoynar, and First Men. Across the Narrow Sea, the Valyrian Freehold thrived under the rule of 40 noble families until 114 BC, when the Targaryens withdrew from politics and moved their entire household to the faraway island of Dragonstone in the Narrow Sea. Aenar Targaryen made this decision because his daughter Daenys the Dreamer had a vision foreseeing a great tragedy which struck 12 years later in 102 BC when the 14 Flames volcano chain erupted, shattering the peninsula. Following the doom of Valyria, Essos descended into a century of blood, with former Valyrian territories struggling for survival. By the end of this period, the western coast was ruled by 9 free cities, while the Dothraki Sea further east was held by nomadic horse lords, which conquered nearly all nearby civilizations. one of the few to survive the Dothraki and prosper during these years, were the cities of Astapor, Yunkai, and Meering along Slaver's Bay, as they built their economy around the slave trade, thereby providing a place for the Dothraki to sell the prisoners they took in battle. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Barachado, Average Soul the Healer, Sir Rick Lone, and Kyle Blitzsword. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.